everyone, welcome back to another multiplayer battle for Warhammer 2. This is going to be the Green Tide of Greenskins versus the Tomb Kings. Very wide Tomb Kings and a pretty wide Greenskins here, so many units to meet each other in battle and brutally kill each other. For my army, our front line is made up of a whole bunch of Orc Boys. I believe we have 4 Orc Boys mixed in this group. We have 2 Night Goblin Fanatics, which are the variants that come with those activated ability, where the spinning loons, which like launch little Night Goblins. I don't use them too much because it just adds more micro to your army, but I wanted to try them out in this one. They are 50 gold more than the normal Fanatics, and that's the only difference, is that they come with, I think, 3 charges of the spinning loon attack, which is a decent ability if you can remember to get it off. I don't always remember to get it off, but I'm going to try. So we have 2 of those Night Goblins, one down here, one right there. There are also 2 Orc Biggins in this group, one right here, and then I think one right there. So the Orc Biggins are kind of on the right flank. On the left flank, it's just being held up by the Orc Boys. For the mobile forces, we have a lot. We have 5 in total of the Squig Herds, which have the bonus versus infantry and armor piercing. I brought these because they're good against a lot of the units that the Tomb Kings are going to bring, because, you know, all their infantry. Now, if they went very construct heavy, at the very least, these units do have armor piercing damage to try and pierce through the armor of the constructs, but with their low melee attack and the lack of any kind of bonus versus large, they're not the best choice, but they get solid enough to kill their infantry, though, for days. In most cases. Anyway, we also have 3 Orc Boar Boy Biggins, one of which is the Broken Tusk Mob, which is going to be over here on the right flank, and there's the other 2 Squig Herds. And this is the renowned unit that also has the encouraging aura around it, so increases leadership of all units around it, which is a pretty big deal for the Greenskins, because they are renowned or known for their pretty low leadership across the board. So having multiple units in the field that can boost up the leadership by any amount is and can be pretty strong in situations. So that's our army. For our leader, of course, I brought Wurzak, because why wouldn't I? He's just the best. I brought him on his boar, so it gives him the armor piercing damage. He has decent melee attack. His melee defense is crap. His armor is pretty crappy, but he is a spellcaster. And for the spells, we brought the... where are they? Here we go. Yep, there we go. We have Here We Go. We also have the Headbutt spell, which is going to be the breath weapon, and then the Brain Burster. This is a pretty standard spell setup that I bring with Wurzak, because we want to try and proc the Bonewood Staff, which is the map-wide buff that gives the entire army plus 13 melee attack and charge bonus for 17 seconds after casting a spell, which is why I bring this setup, because it's a very nice, solid setup. Here We Go is an AoE buff that increases melee attack to the point where almost any unit can now hit everything that is fighting for about 38 seconds, as you can see there. And then the Headbutt does decent enough damage, and then the Brain Buster, same thing, does decent enough damage. And they're also cheap enough to cast one, wait 30 seconds, 60 seconds, cast the other one, and just kind of keep your army topped off with the Bonewood Staff's proccing. Also, the Squiggly Beast, which is going to be able to improve our recharge rate at all times, so we can cast more spells. Also have Wurzak's Revenge, of course, because that is going to affect all spellcasters on the field with the minus 50%, or sorry, plus 50% chance to miscast. And we're also fighting against the Grand Hierophant Kotep here. I'm actually going to have to pause this for a moment. So it's really good, because every single spell Grand Hierophant Kotep casts is going to have a miscast chance, which means that they could do some bonus damage versus themselves. Also brought FSU to get, and the Wah ability, of course. It's a pretty standard, like, this is my Wurzak build. That's, like, the only thing that would be different with Wurzak is if I chose to bring the Foot of Gork or not. But in most cases, I believe this is what I pick. I sometimes also bring the Fist of Gork, which is another powerful melee buff attack, but I didn't this time. That's the only difference. Alright, so that is my army, and as you can see, I'm basically spread out from one end of this map to another. It is a very small map. For the enemy army here, we are being charged currently by the Chimerian War Sphinx, which is the one construct that the enemy has brought in their very wide formation. This is a very scary unit, especially for the orcs, because it is an anti-infantry unit with a high leadership, has great animation attacks, meaning it can kind of just charge through anybody. Really good. It has these people up here actually shooting their bows from its back. Not the most powerful of things, but just a nice little feature on top of it, just being a beast in melee against the infantry, of which we brought quite a few units. So that is a very scary monster, and of course they're being led by the Grand Hierophant Kotep, who is currently under the buff of the incantation of Cursed Blades, giving him weapon damage and armor piercing damage. I think they're doing that because they planned on charging into our infantry on their chariot, which the chariot is a very good mount choice for Kotep when fighting against the orcs, because, well, orcs are going to probably bring a lot of infantry that the chariot can go through. But for the rest of the loadout here for Kotep. We have the Sandstorm ability, which we'll be seeing throughout the course of the battle, which is the vortex of giant, like a tornado, dust tornado of skulls, basically. We have the Arcane Conduit. We also have the Incantation of Desiccation, which is a great debuff to cast on your enemy. The Incantation of Protection, which is a great buff to cast on yourself or an ally, granting you 44% physical resistance. A really good spell and very cheap. Speaking of cheap spells, you can also see that they have the Incantation of Cursed Blades, which they cast on themselves. Only 3 wins of magic. It is super cheap for 25 seconds. Increasing your damage like that is very good. On top of that, they also have the Lich Staff, which I believe is why they cast it on themselves so early, because it procs with the Lich Staff. So whenever they cast a spell with the Lich Staff, all of the enemy units will have the Lich Staff effect, which increases their ability recharge rate by 15 seconds. So that's going to delay our spells a little bit. And each time that they cast that, it's just kind of adding more ability recharge time to Warzag. So it's a nice counter to Warzag's spellcasting abilities. We also have My Will Be Done, which is going to be the constant aura, plus 5 melee defense and plus 5 melee attack. It's good. You should always probably bring that aura. And then the rest is dead. That's just the lore passive. And then the curse, which all lores and heroes of the Tomb Kings have. At 50%, they will pop the curse and do some damage to units around them. So that's going to be a it's a Kotep, Grand Arrow for Kotep. Oh, a lot of talking already. Put it back in slow motion. So for the rest of their army, their front line is made up of 2 Tomb Guards, 1 on each flank, 3 Skeletal Warriors in the middle, 4 Skeletal Archers, which can be pretty devastating against our forces if used against like our Orc Biggins and our Squidcurs and all that stuff. So very scary to see 4 Skeletal Archers here. We also have an additional Tomb Guard with Halberds right here. We also have the Kepra Guard, the Tomb Guard Renown unit, which has regeneration, magical damage, and pretty decent stats all around. It's a good, solid infantry unit for the Tomb Kings. And then we also have 4 Skeletal Spearmen protecting the back to try and make sure that their archers are going to be safe. Also, one more unit here. We have the Necrotect, which you don't see too often. This is a construct support unit. It has a bonus versus infantry, but its stats are pretty crap for a lord, but it is more of a support unit. It is nice that it does have a plus 20 bonus to infantry. So in an infantry fight against some lightly armored infantry, preferably non-armor piercers probably, this thing can probably hold its own for a while. But if any kind of anti-lord or anti-hero character gets on this guy, they're probably not going to last too long because they're relatively low stats and armor. But what's really cool about them is that they can bring the Elixir of Might, which can buff an ally for 36 seconds with 50% weapon damage and 26 attack. It's a very powerful buff. You only get 1 cast of it, though. And then they also have the Restore, which is a construct-only heal. One of the very few ways, in fact, I think the only way that your constructs can heal for the Tomb Kings is by bringing the Necrotect and hitting them with this Restore ability. So it is a cool unit, and they're going to be using that to support the Cimmerian War Sphinx. Alright, now let's finally get the battle started. As you can see here, we're going to use our superior mobile forces and try and get and loop around behind the enemy forces. But the thing is, they do have all these spears, which is annoying, but the spearmen are pretty weak. With only a 14 melee attack, they do have the bonus versus large, but still they're not the scariest unit for a large unit to fight. They are pretty cheap, just fodder. So charging into them is not the worst thing imaginable. But anyway, we're going to be charging into the front lines, getting into the Skeletal Warriors here. We have a Tomb Guard down this way. We have the Kepra Guard over here, which are going to be fighting against our Orc Boys, so that's going to be a good fight for them. Going to pop our wall here because I want to try and buy time for us to get into position to try and get a wall for our Squidcurs and our Orc Boys who are trying to find a way into the Skeletal Archers. You can see the Spearmen going to be pulled from over here, so it's going to leave us a nice avenue of attack to get into the back of these Skeletal Archers here. We managed to pierce the line because they didn't have enough frontline fighters, so we're going to be able to get into the Skeletal Warriors back here with one of our Orc Boys. Walls is a very powerful ability, and it's doing a lot of damage right now. You can see these Skeletal Warriors just getting chunked down very quickly. The Tomb Guards, though, are going to be able to hold up a little bit better, but these Halberds, man, these Halberds just got murdered by these Orc Boys with the Here We Go, with the wall and everything. The Cimmerian War Sphinx, though, was going and doing a lot of damage to the Orc Biggins, along with these Skeletal Archers. We're also pouring fire into these Orc Biggins and the Necrotech, so they are going to rout them, but they will come back soon. And generally speaking, over the course of this battle, our left flank is going to kind of take a lot of damage because they're fighting against the Tomb Guard and the Kepra Guard with just Orc Boys and Night Goblins. But the right side, you can see that's where we put up a lot of our forces. We have a lot of our Squidcurs here. Our Broken Test Mob is pierced through the back, through these Archers, because we're trying to get onto the Cimmerian War Sphinx with our anti-large units of the Orc Boy Biggins. And Warzag is going to be back or around to try and support that fight. Necrotech is going to be pulled off here soon, but they are chasing our Orc Biggins for a little bit, so that's actually kind of good for us. They're not mixed in here. And right now, we've kind of isolated their big key units, because as you can see here, again, they're doing really well over here. They're routing off our Fanatics. They are routing off our Orc Boys, or are about to. They've done some decent damage to one of the Orc Boy Biggins that I left over here. They did some damage to our Squidcurs, but like and they even summoned their Ushapti. Here's the summoned Ushapti right here, and they summoned over here. So we're doing really bad here, but these aren't necessarily the units that we're worried about, right? We're worried about the Cimmerian War Sphinx and their leader, who are both right here, buried deep into our Orc Boy Biggins, and Warzag himself, along with some support from infantry of Orc Biggins, which do good against large creatures. So, like, really, this is really good for us. A lot of their fodder blockers that are left are over there, leaving us just free reign on this Chimerian Warsphinx. But it is being protected really well by Grand Hierophant Concept. They're going to be casting multiple times the Incantation of Protection, increasing its physical resistance by 44%, which is keeping it into the fight for a long time. They're also going to be debuffing our units here pretty soon with that debuff hex that we went over earlier, so it's going to lower our melee attack and melee defense of all units around this Chimerian Warsphinx, which is going to start leaving Warzag able to be chunked by the Warsphinx. We're trying to do as much damage as we can to him, and Concept Necrotect is coming back and will be healing, I believe, soon. They're going to hit the restore ability on the Warsphinx, so there it is. And so that's going to get its hit points back up to above 50%, I believe. Meanwhile, over here, we're going to just try and do our best to keep the remaining fodder left on this side away from Grand Hierophant, the Necrotect, and the Chimerian Warsphinx. We want to try and keep these units isolated for as long as possible so we can chunk them down with our units and not have to worry about the fodder taking some hits for them. Which is why you're going to be seeing me, and I already have, I've like charged Orc Boy Biggins into Spearman, which is normally not what you want to do. There goes the second cast of that Vortex spell, by the way, doing a lot of good initial damage on Orc Biggins here. But yeah, you'll see me that I'm running like Squig Herds into Spearman. I'm running these guys into Spearman because I'm just doing my best to try and keep these units away from their actual damage or important units over here. You can see that we have managed to bring Grand Hierophant Concept down to almost death, which is really good. The Summon Dushabti have taken a lot of damage from their fighting over here, and they're just summoning sickness, which is constantly killing them, so we don't have to worry about them too much. They're fighting an Orc Biggin, which is the unit that we want them to fight because they are the anti-large infantry that we have brought. Again, Grand Hierophant Concept is slowly dying to our Orc Boy Biggins. Warzag, it's a little scary. He's kind of taking a lot of damage, but we're going to cast another Here We Go, which is going to increase the melee attack of all units. And on top of that, the Bonewood Staff, which gives them even more melee attack. So we're going to be doing a lot of damage here with the Here We Go spells. And we're going to hit the Chimerian Warsphinx with our second casting of Effigy of the Git. So now it is taking damage and is going to be pinned in place. And that allows us to finish off Grand Hierophant Concept, who dies in here. We have not been focusing on the Necrotex, so that's why it has to take much damage. It's just been kind of fighting units that kind of just bump up against it, but I'm not actively targeting right now. We're just now targeting the Chimerian Warsphinx, who has just been taking so much damage, because it's been getting those physical protection buffs from Concept, but luckily those are no longer a thing that we need to worry about. I think it's now gone through both of the restores from the Necrotech, so now it is basically on its own, and now the Necrotech is out here. It's mountless because it has no mount, so we're going to be able to now isolate the last leadership of the Tomb Kings. And we've just been kind of keeping all these units busy with whatever was around, and that's mainly just Squig Herds. Squig Herds are large creatures, so they do take bonus damage from the Spearmen, but it was a trade that I was willing to make because it kept us free from worrying about fodder Spearmen getting in here and helping Concept and the Chimerian Warsphinx. So now it's on the hunt for the Warsphinx and the Necrotech. So some of our forces split off to kill the Necrotech, and now the Warsphinx is trying to hide behind the Kepler Guard, which did a really good job of killing a lot of units on this side, because again, they had their regeneration, so it just really kept them in the fight for a long time. We're going to pin the Kepler Guard, I believe, with the Squig Herds. We're trying to find a way into the Warsphinx with our Orc Boy Biggins. We're going to pull back another Orc Boy Biggin over here, and we're going to catch the Warsphinx round right here. So we're just trying to maneuver around, finish this unit off as quick as possible, as well as Necrotech, and you can see that he is just getting killed. The Necrotech is not really made for any kind of duels or fighting any kind of stronger units like Orc Biggins. Even Orc Boys are going to chunk him down over time, and with the help of Warzag nearby, he just does not have much of a chance to survive this battle. What remaining units on this side are coming in, but they have been just destroyed by the Squig Herds and the Orc Boy Biggins and Orc Boys. Excuse me, so they are going to fall, and that is going to be the end of the Tomb Kings. We just brought down the Warsphinx, we bring down the Kepler Guard, and yeah, that's it. Another Here We Go dropped. So that's going to be a victory for Warzag's Wa against the Tomb Kings. When there's two wide armies going at it, it's just a lot to cover because none of these were really elite armies. You know, we brought strong units here and there, but they were like just wide army versus wide army. There's so much happening that I didn't even get to talk to, but generally, again, our left flank got destroyed by their Tomb Guard and the Kepler Guard that was over there, supported by the archers. We did our best to get into the archers, and we did pretty good at the cost of a lot of Squig Herds and a lot of Orc Boy Biggins, but that's why we brought them, right? We brought a ton of Squig Herds to try and just overwhelm the infantry units and get into the Skeletal Archers, and we were able to do that because we brought so many. Our front line crashed into their front line. They didn't have enough units to keep all of these frontline units busy, so some Orc Boys got into the archers, and then the back line was overwhelmed by just how many mobile forces we brought, so that actually worked out pretty well. The Warsphinx did a lot of good damage to our Orc Biggins, Orc Boys, almost managed to kill Warzag, which is very scary, but in the end, we were able to obviously bring it down. But that was a good game to Light Messenger. So hope you enjoyed. I'm going to take a drink of water, and then I'll see you on the cinematic view. So I think the goblins would have drowned because they had to walk through all of this water, and the water is actually tall enough to cover most of their bodies except for their pointy hats. Also, I did manage to cast, I think, 2 of the spinning loons, 1 from each of the units. And I believe they have 3 castings each. So I did pretty good. You alright? Yeah. 1 out of 3 for each of them is not bad. It's totally worth the 50 extra gold I spent on them. Totally. It's a cool attack if you remember to get it off. It's just... there's a lot to micro with the wide greenskin army. There's the first FG that gets. We're going to try and surround it with the orc biggins. Don't really get the surround off, though. Just kind of bunch up and then start getting hit by a bunch of arrows, which is really bad for them. That's also pretty bad for them. Oh, hey, where's that? First tornado. Honestly, I think that tornado probably did most of the damage to their own tomb guards. Because these tomb guard died pretty quickly. I think I cast 1 spell at them from Warzak, and that was it. Broken Tusk Mob. You can tell with the orange colored shoulder pads. They're just trying to walk through. These archers, though. God, they had no chance against squig herds. Multiple squig herds. Oh, they're so happy, feasting on bones. I probably should have done some cycle charging with these orc boys. God, double breath in the face. Trip. Warzak definitely took some hits during that fight. But like here, the enemy was already winning on this side. I definitely would have summoned these Shopti either to help out the archers that were over here getting killed, or to help out Kazan. Because they were kind of summoned into a fight that was already being won. Farewell, Ushapti. You know, it'd be really cool if they just gave these guys 2 spears. Just a spear in each hand. Like, just why not? Don't increase your stats at all, just a visual thing. Because dual wielding is cool. That guy, that Necrotech is gonna have a bad day. But they did a really good job of keeping that War Sphinx up for a while with their restore ability. It's trying. Oh, then it gets charged in the front. And there we go. So thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed some more Green Tide. I'll see you all next time. Take care.